Even the best man becomes forgettable because the feminine doesn't remember you by facts. She remembers you by feelings, and the deeper that feeling, the longer you stay in her nervous system, even if she tries to move on, even if she dates someone new, because nothing is more haunting than a man who touched her emotionally, then vanished without attachment. And this is why distance can often do more than dialogue. Why mystery creates more pull than explanation. Because attraction isn't logical, it's chemical. And the second you stop trying to talk her into wanting you and start letting her feel you on an energetic level, you become unforgettable. Not because you chased, but because you made her nervous system recognize something ancient, something sacred, something she didn't know she craved until you stopped overgiving and started standing still. And this stillness, this internal silence, isn't passive, it's powerful. It's what Stoic masculinity actually means, not coldness, but control, not indifference, but depth. And in a world of emotionally impulsive men, the one who can hold his center becomes the gravitational pull around which all feminine energy orbits. And this is what most women never say directly, but show in how they react, because her words may tell you she wants a nice guy, but her body, her eyes, her silence, her delayed replies, they all tell the real story, and that story is ancient. She wants to feel something real, something she can't manufacture, something that doesn't flatter her ego but shakes her soul. And that's why so many women unconsciously sabotage the perfect guy who does everything right. Because deep down, doing everything right often feels wrong when there's no emotional charge, no tension, no unknown, and no man who can say no to her, which is why the most powerful thing you can ever do with a woman you desire is walk away when respect is lost, not out of pride, but out of principle, because that moment, when you leave without resentment or begging, imprints her more deeply than 100 love poems, and in that space she finally sees you, not as a boy trying to earn her, but as a man she must rise to meet. And this flips the dynamic from need to worth, from proving to leading, and from chasing to choosing. And this is the paradox of masculine attraction. The less you need her to validate you, the more validated she feels by your presence. And the moment you understand that your value isn't proven through attention, but through emotional impact, everything changes. Because now, even your silence says more than words ever could. Even your absence becomes felt more than other men's presence. And this is the essence of Stoic seduction. Not by forcing, not by faking, but by being so emotionally full, so deeply centered, so unapologetically masculine, that she doesn't just want you, she remembers you. Because a woman needs to feel something, anything, other than numbness. And if you can't give her emotional elevation, she'll eventually find it somewhere else. Sometimes in a reckless fling, sometimes in an emotional affair, and sometimes in secret fantasies about the man who doesn't even know her name, because desire doesn't care about morality. It follows the path of emotional sensation, and this is why forbidden compliments, teasing silences, and confident indifference often stir more attraction than hours of affirming texts or gifts. Not because women are shallow, but because they're wired to feel first, rationalize later, and if you learn how to dance with her emotions without losing yourself in them, you become unforgettable. And this brings us to the fourth truth. The world should be perfection, but it isn't. And the feminine knows this better than anyone, because at her core, every woman is seeking something sacred, something true, something real beneath the noise. And the man who gives her that isn't always the richest, the tallest, or the smoothest, but the one who can hold her chaos without flinching, who can challenge her illusions with grounded truth, who can walk away when respect is lost, and who can pull her into the present moment so fully that she forgets to check her phone, because in a world addicted to validation, the man who needs nothing becomes magnetic, And in a world full of men trying to get something, the man who gives her a feeling she's never had before, calm intensity, fierce presence, sovereign mystery, that man becomes the standard she compares everyone to. And here's the final truth most men never learn. Seduction doesn't begin with what you say to her. It begins with what you feel about yourself, because she reads you faster than you can fake it. She feels your insecurity before you open your mouth. She senses whether you're a man who can lead, protect, and challenge, not with your fists or your bank account, but with your gaze, your frame, your silence, and your truth. And the moment you become that man, not a perfect man, but a present one, everything changes. Not because you're doing something different, but because you're being something different. And that shift, from needing her to choosing yourself, is what opens the door to everything you've ever wanted, not just from women, but from life. Because the deeper truth is this: she was never the prize. You are, and the world becomes perfection the moment you stop seeking it in her and start embodying it in you. Because once you understand that emotional imprinting is the real game, not logic, not looks, not lines, you begin to see the entire dating world differently, almost like waking up from a dream you didn't know you were trapped in, because now every message she sends, every glance she throws, every hesitation or breadcrumb or withdrawal suddenly makes sense through a deeper lens. Not as a rejection of you, but as a reflection of how deeply, or shallowly, she feels your presence, because a woman cannot attach to a man she doesn't feel emotionally impacted by. And that impact doesn't come from proving yourself, but from revealing yourself, calmly, honestly, unapologetically. And in doing so, you become rare, because in a culture where most men chase women out of emptiness, the man who chooses them from fullness, who walks with purpose, who leads with conviction, becomes an emotional anomaly. And anomalies leave marks that don't fade, even years later, which is why she can forget your name, your job, your face. But she'll never forget how you made her feel, and that feeling is the fingerprint of attraction, deeper than logic, stronger than lust, and far more permanent than any compliment or status symbol. And that's the reason some women obsess over a man who barely speaks but radiates presence, and forget the one who was always there but never really seen. Because true masculine energy doesn't beg to be noticed, it alters the atmosphere. And when you finally get this, when you stop trying to win her and start embodying yourself, you'll notice something strange happening. The same women who once ignored you begin to orbit, drawn not to your words, but your silence, not to your promises, but your energy. And you'll realize it's not that they changed. It's that you stopped being invisible by finally becoming emotionally undeniable. And the moment you become emotionally undeniable, you stop chasing and start attracting effortlessly, because the game flips the second you understand that attention isn't the goal. Impact is. And that's the difference between the man she talks to and the one she fantasizes about, between the one she texts back and the one she stalks at 2 a.m. without knowing why. And if you've ever felt confused by why she pulled away, why she went cold, why she ghosted after seeming so into you, it wasn't because you weren't enough. It's because you didn't leave an emotional fingerprint. And without that, you don't find truth in words, you feel it in silence. And when it comes to understanding female attraction, that silence often screams louder than any confession, because what women desire most, what makes them fall, ache and surrender, is rarely what they say, and almost never what you think. It's not the muscles, not the jawline, not the income or charm. It's the way you make her feel when she's not sure how to explain it, when her body reacts before her mind catches up, when your presence pulls her into the moment so deeply that time disappears, and she can't stop thinking about you for reasons that defy logic. And that right there is the essence of emotional imprinting, the real currency of attraction, the deep pull that bypasses conscious decision-making and roots itself in the primal psychology of the feminine. Because whether she's a CEO or a poet, whether she's guarded or giggly, every woman carries within her a hidden world, a world wired for feeling, a world that craves polarity, a world where words matter less than tone, posture, timing, and the unspoken electricity between two souls. And the tragedy is that most men are blind to this, operating on logic in a domain governed by emotion, trying to impress with resumes instead of presence, trying to win her over with effort when what really draws her in is energy, mystery, and grounded masculine stillness, which is why the man who makes her feel the most, whether that's tension, desire, calm, danger, laughter, or heartbreak, is often the man she ends up chasing, even when she swore she'd never be the kind of girl who chases. And that's the first brutal truth. Women don't fall for who you are on paper. They fall for the emotional footprint you leave in their nervous system. And if you learn to create those imprints, not by pretending or manipulating, but by embodying authentic masculine polarity, you'll never need to chase again, because she'll feel your absence like a missing drug, which brings us to the second truth, the one most men sense but can't articulate. Attention is not affection, emotional availability is not intimacy, and validation is not love. And many women, especially in modern society, have learned to offer the illusion of closeness without ever giving themselves emotionally, offering warm texts, deep talks, and shared laughter, while keeping the gates of true surrender tightly locked, not because they're malicious, but because the world taught them to use emotional leverage instead of love. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake her interest for attraction, her softness for submission, her time for devotion. But a woman can talk to you every day, tell you secrets, send you photos, and still not feel anything real for you, because the feminine opens not from consistency, but from captivation. And if you fail to stir her soul, she'll keep you around as emotional background noise while giving her body to the man who moves her without effort, who says little but says it with presence, which is why being the nice guy often backfires. Not because kindness is weakness, but because kindness without tension feels flat, predictable, safe. And the truth is, most women don't want safe. They want sacred danger. The feeling of being drawn into something bigger than themselves, into a man whose presence awakens a part of her she didn't know she'd buried, and that's where Stoic masculinity becomes lethal, not because it's cold or distant, but because it radiates grounded emotional leadership, the rare ability to stay calm while the world trembles, to remain centered when she tests, to listen without reacting, speak without over-explaining, and touch without needing. And this triggers one of the deepest female psychological switches, respect. And without that switch, nothing else lasts. Because once a woman loses respect for a man, attraction dies silently, and no amount of begging, logic, or being there for her will reignite what's already turned off. Because women fall in love with presence, not pleading, with the man who knows who he is without needing her approval, with the man who doesn't argue for his worth, but demonstrates it through calm conviction. And ironically, it's in this detachment, this self-contained energy, that a woman feels most safe to surrender, because she senses that she's entering the orbit of a man who won't lose himself in her, and that's what allows her to lose herself in him. Which leads us to the third truth. Attraction isn't created through performance, but through polarity. And polarity is tension, the electric space between masculine and feminine, between stillness and storm, between chaos and order. And this is why so many relationships die not from lack of love, but lack of charge, because modern men are taught to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to seek harmony at the cost of intensity, and so they become emotionally neutral, and in doing so, they kill the very spark that once drew her in,